In a sport where only 10 teams can enter with only 2 seats apiece, it really cannot be overstated just how important it is that these positions do not go to waste. Whether down to the unenthusiasm of a driver or a jaded team owner no longer up to the challenge, the replacement and rejuvenation of those positions are of the utmost importance, both for the fans and their continued enjoyment of the sport, as well as the shareholder in the sport not wanting a lame duck affecting revenues due to fan disinterest. Because of the sparse availability of spaces, a team pulling punches or even just not being optimally led impacts 10% of the overall sport, which is a hefty amount when it comes to the footprint of a global sports franchise. However, the other thing that can't go without consideration is that if these positions become vacant or are under consideration of being bought out by new ownership, then they must meet some incredibly strict standards and expectations. Well, that is if they don't already have a back door and the wealth of a whole nation behind them, it seems. Want to know why massive changes could be coming to Aston Martin? After an impressive few seasons, Lawrence Stroll has taken the team a long way, but could this be as far as he can go? And stick around, because it's not only Lawrence who could be headed for the exit at the Silverstone team. So what the hell is going on at Aston Martin? Following their heroics at the beginning of last season, where Alonso was battling for, if not on, the podium most races, and Lance Stroll endeared himself to the F1 world with his Herculean effort at the opening races, the team tailed off into the midfield in the latter half of the season, falling back behind Ferrari, Mercedes, and even the previously stranded McLaren. After battling his injuries from a bike accident mere weeks prior to the start of the season, which were so severe that he needed metal work in his wrists, Lance Stroll returned to the regular program of nonchalant radio messages, brief and uncharismatic interviews, and some pretty high-profile crashes. The Aston decline last season was not necessarily unexpected, at least not nearly as unexpected as their sudden launch up the ranks to begin with. However, so far this year has failed to match the lofty heights in terms of results and expectations set by themselves and the fans waiting for Alonso's 33rd race win. It seems that last year was a high-profile peak, one which not only won over new fans, but also garnered the attention of potential buyers for the team too. A seat at the table in F1 is hard to come by, just ask Andretti, and it is one of the most coveted seats in motorsport, and because of that, world sport. The value of F1 teams has skyrocketed in recent years, with more eyes on the sport than ever due to the accessibility to every race afforded by coverage across the world, as well as the social sensation of both Drive to Survive and personalities in the paddock and fan content here on YouTube. Since Liberty Media's takeover, there has been a constant upturn in profits, while keeping the pie slices at the same size, causing a team's inherent value to grow alongside the sport's growth across the globe. So why does this all concern Aston Martin? The current owners of Aston Martin are a consortium of businessmen and investors headed by Lawrence Stroll, who himself is a high-profile businessman. The one thing that they will hold above all else is a return on investment, which it is fair to say the team, as well as the sport as a whole, has all but guaranteed at this point. The extent to the team's growth in value will only be increased by the new facilities and foundation work that has been undertaken on the team over the past few years, as well as the securing of a World Championship engine manufacturer, Honda, for their engines from 2026 onwards. Long story long, there is an awful lot of value in the team that was bought out from its previous incarnation of Force India in 2018 for $90 million, plus $15 million in debt payments. Obviously, there's been some further investment from Stroll to the tune of a further $230-ish million. However, that is dwarfed by Forbes' estimate of the team's worth in 2023 of $1.37 billion, which has likely only continued to rise alongside the lengthening of the calendar, the securing of Honda, and the maintained threat towards the top end of the grid in the form of Fernando Alonso. The other car, however, may not be adding quite as much, but more on that later. It's been rumored for a while now that Saudi Arabian state-owned oil giant Aramco, the current title sponsor of the team whose worth is in the borderline eldritch figures of $2 trillion, is interested in purchasing the Aston Martin team. With the massive Middle Eastern push seen over the past 2 decades, where sheiks and ruling families in Bahrain, Qatar, Abu Dhabi and Saudi Arabia have pumped billions into hosting their own races, not likely due to the love of the sport as they likely wouldn't know what a fangio is, the clear next step for any entertainment expansionists is to own their own F1 team, with Bahrain's sovereign wealth fund being the closest to achieve this so far with McLaren. With Lawrence supposedly being open to at least the sale of a controlling stake, if not the full team, then this could have massive ramifications on the sport. First and foremost, to do with questions surrounding the sport's striving for equality and diversification, with the current Aston Martin test driver being not only a woman who wouldn't legally be allowed to drive in Saudi Arabia up until 2018, but a member of the LGBT community, something punishable by death within Saudi Arabia. While F1 somewhat naively states that by visiting these countries they are starting a conversation, having direct ownership of a team by a state that directly opposes the mission of Formula One would inherently mean backpacking an entity that is in direct opposition with the sport's values around the globe. Though this is arguably already done, with Aramco being the title sponsor of the team in the first place. With all that said, I think it's about time we put a lid back on that Pandora's box for the time being and get back to the sporting matters, before the comments start to implode. Aramco have supposedly made it clear that if they were to secure the Silverstone racing team, then a blank checkbook would be pointed at the direction of some absolute heavyweights of the sport, with the state-owned petroleum company seeing Max Verstappen and Adrian Newey as the primary targets if they were to take over the team. Clearly, this would be absolutely foundation-shaking for the sport, where the limited spending within the cost cap on track makes splurging on personnel and off-track assets the obvious direction for this practically unlimited budget to be spent, as it would have a similar impact on Formula One as state ownership has had on football, where the richest teams with the most to offer financially, rather than historically, have first pickings on the best staff, players and backroom personnel. Clearly, one man will have a pretty big say on whether or not this all happens, as Lawrence originally bought into the team as a vessel for his son's career as a racing driver. Lance's performance and dedication to the sport has come under constant scrutiny due to a persistent deficit to teammate Fernando Alonso. His highest finish in the Drivers' Championship is P10, making him a journeyman at best. However, when you consider the rocket ship that Lance was in last season, with Alonso finishing a gargantuan 132 points ahead of his Canadian teammate, Stroll's performances during his time in the sport has been nothing short of lackluster, and can only be described as being patchy at best. Long has Lance's commitment to the sport come into question, and if he was to move on to other passions or be demanded to step down by the team's investors who would want to see the team fulfill its full potential, then it's hard to believe that his father would see much point in sticking around. Ex-team owner Eddie Jordan recently queried Lawrence's perspective on all of this, especially when considering everything he has secured for the team, just for his son to fail to capitalize. Jordan had this to say on the matter. So, I'm at a confusion. How does Lawrence Stroll go out and get the best technical people worldwide and make his team into a consistent race-winning team? Either Lance has to move up a scale and really get himself together and continually finish on the podium, and then people will totally believe in what he's able to do, but at the moment, his results are not good enough, and I think he's going to have to think about this once and for all. The future of Aston Martin in its current form is massively unclear, with potential buyers sensing opportunity, a father-son duo at a crossroads with the current investors, and an aging number one driver perhaps not convinced that his future is best placed at the team. What is known for certain is that the team's fate will likely be known over the course of the season, with Alonso's future being decided and the current ownership needing to decide whether it's worth sticking around until the new regulations, or if now is the time to cash out on an already ludicrous return on investment. Aramco seems to be poised to make their move either way, and it may just be that no matter what the current ownership thinks, the offer may just be too good to turn down, and that will be a can of worms to open on another day. Thank you for watching.